Hi everyone, my name is True. I'm a software engineer at Discord, and I'm so excited to be here because I've made several little TikToks about what my day in the life is, and I'm excited to dig in and everyone else's day in the life as a software engineer. And with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to today's panelists. So we have Layla, who is a software engineer at Google, where she's been working for almost a year. And before Google, Layla was at the University of Texas at Austin and graduated in 2021 with a bachelor's in computer science. And we also have Alvin, who is a senior associate software engineer at Capital One. After graduating from the University of Virginia in 2019, he joined Capital One and has worked on anti-money laundering and credit card application technologies. Super interesting. So let's start off with a little bit of quick summaries about what each of you do. So Layla, why don't you go first? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Google?
Sure. So, like you mentioned, I've been a software engineer at Google for about a year now. I currently work as part of the Android team under a subset called Google Play Services. We basically handle Google's proprietary layer that allows first and third party apps to interact well with the Android system.
That's awesome. And then Alvin, some people might not realize how many software engineering opportunities there are at companies like Capital One. So can you talk a little bit about what your role there is?
Mhm. So I joined in the technology development program. It's a 2-year program where you rotate halfway through to a second team. The goal is to get like a breadth of experience. So my first team was on the anti-money laundering platform. So on that side, we managed the app that screened all of Capital One for anti-money laundering. And then I rotated onto my current team, which deals with credit card application processing. My team specifically is like an orchestration platform. So all the teams talk to us kind of in like a hub and spoke model where we're in the middle and everybody else is like around us sending communication back and forth.
Nice. No, that's awesome. And so, yeah, let's get into a little bit more about what your day in the life is like specifically. And so, let's talk through like your typical day or a week. And so, would you start your day with a stand up? What percentage of your time do you spend coding versus meetings? And so, Alvin, why don't you go first?
Yep. So my days start with a stand up at 10:30. Well, we start before 10:30. Our stand-up just happens to be at 10:30. Um, and then it usually ends around 5:30. There are a few meetings usually throughout the week. For example, every Tuesday and Thursday, we have what we call Tech Scrum, where organization-wide, all the engineers come together and present designs, architecture, and we get feedback from each other. And then usually once or twice a week, we have what we call grooming, which is our manager and the product side all come together and we plan out our work for the next 2 weeks.
Nice. Yeah, we also have 10:30 meetings in the morning. But yeah, I try to get up earlier than that so I don't, stand up's a little late, but I try to. But yeah, so Layla, what's your typical day look like?
So similar to you guys, I also have a weekly 10:30 meeting that my team we all attend. It's a once a week meeting just to talk about what's going on, updates on any projects that we're all individually working on, any chance to tackle any issues that we're having. Typical day for me is typical 9 to 5 hours, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on the workload and what we have going on. Throughout my week, I'd say maybe like 20% of my time is in meetings, and the other percent of the time I'm coding, asking questions, reading documentation, etc. Yeah, so that's pretty much what my week looks like, generally speaking. Yeah.
Nice, love that. I think 10:30 is so funny. Imagine being on the East Coast. I feel like it would be like a 2 o'clock
We
meeting.
have some people on the East Coast on my team, and it's
Yeah.
just like I feel so bad for them.
But yeah, so awesome. So what tech stack and programming languages are you both using most often? Layla, do you want to start this one?
Sure. So since I am part of an Android team, the main language that I'm using currently is like Java and Kotlin for the things that I'm currently working on, but anything within the realm of the Android app languages, like so I do a little bit of XML, not a ton, but those are mainly the languages that I use. And whatever build code languages that I have to use in order to get everything working, I'll use those as well.
Nice, that's awesome. And then Alvin, what about you?
Yep. So my first team used Python and Scala. So Scala is Java based, and then we use Akka. It's like a framework, a messaging framework. And then currently my team uses Python and Postgres on the back end.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Yeah, at Discord, I mostly work on the website, so it's a lot of like React, TypeScript, and then I have to learn React Native. I did a little bit of React Native for our mobile apps, so I got to get better with that. But like the build process is complicated, and so my tech lead actually writes some Objective C too. So I'm hoping maybe I don't get to touch that, but we'll see. So that's awesome. And so Layla, you recently graduated just this last year, I think, which is crazy to me. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you going to like being in school, doing like classwork and doing like projects for school, and then transitioning to being a software engineer?
Sure. So my transition was actually pretty quick. I ended up graduating in spring of 2021, and then I was working by September. So only a little bit of time between when I graduated and when I started working. As far as the transition, it was definitely different from going from college and little small assignments, that whatever projects that were required from your classes, and then going to this giant tech stack and this giant code base that Google has. So it was just definitely an adjustment on my end. Also, in terms of time management, it was also a pretty big adjustment. In college, I was a night owl, so I would be up all times of the night working on things. Whereas when you work a regular job, that's not necessarily what you can do. So having to make adjustments on that end was a bit of a little bit of a struggle for me. But after a year, I've gotten used to like having a more regular schedule. So overall, a challenging but definitely doable and worth it transition.
And then really quick, do you feel like the work that you did in college is like similar, or did you have internships that kind of helped you prep for the type of work that you saw at Google? How is that kind of?
So yeah, I interned my sophomore year at Lockheed Martin, and then I interned my junior year at then Facebook, now Meta. So I had a little bit of experience with working with large code spaces, but still not a ton. Um, it definitely gave me, especially in school, like the team working and the projects that we had to do. We had to do a lot of collaborative projects for the classes that I was in. So that definitely helped prepare me for coming into an environment like Google, where I do a lot of like collaborative projects. So in that regard, it definitely prepared me. Also, in terms of education, the UT computer science program, we did a lot of Java coding. So that was very helpful coming in because there were a lot of Java things that I already knew, but even some things that I didn't know. So having that good foundation from school definitely helped.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you got to write some Java in class too. So nice. And so, Alvin, let's talk about a little bit of your skills beyond technical. So, working like full time as a software engineer, what type of others like soft skills have you found that are most valued among software engineers?
Yeah. So I would say like knowing how you learn, because a lot of the skills you pick up on the job, like when I joined my first team, I had no idea what Scala and Akka were. I hadn't even heard of them. So the first few weeks were simply ramping up on those two topics. And then second, I would say is like technical communication, or being able to communicate technical topics to non-technical people. So like when you demo your work, there's going to be product and business people in the demo. So if you get too technical, they won't understand. So it's a way of showing off your work and how everything fits together, and that will really help you progress along your career as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think communication is like one of the most valued skills, especially if you can communicate what you're building to non-technical people. That's huge for sure, definitely. And so for both of you also, and we'll start with Alvin on this. Outside of work, do you participate in any like ways to develop your skills at all? Like, are you given like kind of skill development programs that you can join, like LinkedIn Learning, et cetera? Or are you encouraged to do this by your managers and companies?
Mhm. Yep. So on both of my teams, actually, they really prioritize this. So on my first team, we were actively encouraged to go to like tech conferences. For MongoDB had a conference like at Capital One, and we were encouraged to go there. Splunk recently also had like a conference out in Maryland, I believe at a Topgolf. So we're encouraged to sign up for that. And then internally, we have what we call like Capital One University, or I think they've rebranded it recently. But there is like all kinds of like life skills, tech skills, soft skills, For example, there's like a personal finance class there. And then at Capital One, we use Amazon Web Services a lot. So all the study material and exam material is paid for by Capital One. And then ever since work from home started, I think tech-wide, once a month, they have what we call Invest in Yourself days. So that day is you're expected to be online, but you're not expected to do real work. So you explore skills that you think are helpful to you, and that day is pretty much up to you.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Yeah. How about you, Layla?
So outside of work, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm encouraged to learn any sort of more technical skills. There's some things like I have some personal projects that I'm working on that I'll tinker with outside of work. But in terms of learning things for on the job outside of work, I'm not necessarily encouraged to do that because we have a lot of internal classes and tutorials that we participate in. My team, we always host, so we have another meeting every Monday, and there's always a section where someone can give a tech talk. So if there's a topic that I'm curious about or something on our team that I'm not really sure about, I can add that to the suggested list of topics, and they'll find someone who knows about it and they'll give a presentation. Or for new people on our team, we'll have something like someone will volunteer just to walk them through the basics of how just the Google infrastructure and how our team's infrastructure is set up. So outside of work, not so much, but definitely inside of work and on the job for sure.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah. For at Discord specifically, I'm in like the Women in Tech org there. So they host events that'll help with a lot of like the soft skills, like how to level up, how to talk to your manager about things. And then yeah, in terms of like technical stuff, I mean, we have money that's given to us, I think, quarterly to like try to take any courses or anything that we want to do. So it's really nice to hear that's everywhere as well. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about who you both work with on your day-to-day basis and how you collaborate, because collaborating is super important as a software engineer. And so I'd love to hear about how your team specifically is organized, how big is it, and like what other teams do you interact with as like a software engineer? And then like, do you work closely with a PM or a tech lead, a designer, et cetera? And so Alvin, why don't you go first with this?
Yep. So when I first started, my day-to-day was pretty much talking to other engineers on my team. I talked to my tech lead a lot because he had most of the answers for my questions. And then my manager was there a lot to help like guide the business context. And then as you like get more comfortable, you get promoted and you like accept more responsibilities, you start talking to more business and product folks, because then your scope and influence kind of expands. So you are still coding, but then you take on like design responsibility, you take on coordination and moderation between all the different teams. So I would say currently, I talk to product and business people about like 10, 15% of my day. And then about half of my day is spent talking to other sister teams and teams within my platform as we're going through like QA testing before we release a new feature. And then the rest is working with my team.
And so, Layla, how can you talk a little bit about what your team at Google looks like? And do you have peers that are kind of also new grads like you? How is your team structured?
Sure. So like I said, I work under Google Play Services, which is a huge umbrella. So there's a ton of sub teams underneath it. My specific team, we're a team of 6, but we're looking to add more people. I think we have like a couple more spots open, so that should be changing fairly soon, maybe. So those are the people on a day-to-day that I work with for the most part. When I have questions or any problems that I'm having, I usually will go to them first. Also, a member of that team is my manager. So any complicated questions that maybe like my immediate team members can't answer, I'll usually take them to him and he'll usually have an answer. Similar to how Alvin was saying, the longer that you're there, then you kind of start to reach out to more people from different teams. So for instance, like for a code review process, there's certain people who I can reach out to from other teams who might be able to get something done a little quicker than maybe someone on my team who's like a little more busy with something, or maybe they just don't have approval to be able to approve certain things. So over time, I started to reach out to different people, but even now, for the most part, for the day-to-day, it's mainly my immediate team and the sub teams that kind of sit around us. We all kind of work together. So those are the main people that I go to.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, at Discord we have teams, small teams as well. We call them squads. And so my squad is around 4 engineers. We have 1 PM, 1 engineering manager, and then a designer. And so we're split up really small. So we have like very specific targets that we go to. So for me, I'm on the new member experience team. So if anyone starts and or joins a Discord server, what is the first thing that they kind of like see? That's kind of what my team focuses on. So it's cool that we're like scoped so small. But because of that, like Discord is it's huge, right? So I am super cross collaborative with other teams. We talk to other teams on design aspects all the time because we touch APIs that they might own, et cetera. And so that's the best part of my job is being able to cross collaborate like that. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about like career growth. So Alvin, you've been at Capital One for a few years now, and so what opportunities have you had to kind of grow and improve your skill set? We talked a little bit about this with your learning stuff, but like anything, any technical skills that you've learned, any soft skills that you learned in the time that you've been at Capital One?
Yep. Yeah, so I've been here about 3 years. Growth, like technical wise, it's been mainly learn as I needed for the job, and learn as I needed when we build new projects. And then on the career side, I think this has like a lot to do if you find a good mentor and your manager is like quite supportive of you. You guys like have this continual feedback of what you're doing well, what you need to improve on, stuff like that. That will like help you along the way very well. I will say like the first promotion is definitely the easiest to get, and then it just gets much harder afterwards. But I think overall it's finding a good mentor and then surrounding yourself with people who are kind of in a similar boat. And the good thing about the TDP program at Capital One is the whole like I think 700 of us started at the same time. So we all like were in the same situation. We had program support, and the career growth from the program was actually really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, 700 people joining with you is insane. That's so many friends you can have in the get-go. That's awesome. Yeah. And so, Layla, tell us a bit about how you like landed at Google and how that job search process was like, and if there's any advice that you have for students kind of going through that right now. It's a little bit harder now with the recession and everything. So I'm just curious, like, what sort of advice that you have. Yeah.
Sure. So the way that I got into Google, so at the University of Texas, I was a part of a ton of student organizations. I was a part of NSBE. We have an organization called ABCS, Association of Black Computer Scientists, Women in Computer Science. And a lot of tech companies would come and they would talk to us. And the computer science department would have events where recruiters would come out and talk to students about internships and full-time positions. So I was definitely always at those events. Even when I was tired and I didn't want to go, I would make a point to at least get to those events, at least talk to someone. So I would get on their radar, give them my resume or fill out whatever form they needed me to fill out. And then from there, I started actually having a lot of companies just reach out to me. I remember I applied for the Google internship my junior year and I didn't get it. But my senior year, they actually emailed me. They said, hey, are you a new grad? If so, here's the coding assessment, like which is the first part of the interview process. So definitely the best advice that I can give is any events, career fairs, talks, panels like this that you can get on or you can attend at your university, I'd say is your best bet. Also, if you know anyone who's interned for any of these companies before, they can refer you, and that also helps cut through some of that red tape too. So just really also kind of, it really just comes down to like networking, putting yourself out there, making those connections and being willing to also maybe hear a no every now and then. Like I said, I got rejected the first time. So not getting discouraged, even if someone tells you no.
100%. Networking is, I think, the single most important way to get the job, at least, especially the first job. It's very hard to land the first one. And as soon as you get the first one, it's a little bit easier the more jobs that you have along the road. So, yeah, definitely a huge thing. And so, yeah, at Discord, actually, also, I got rejected the first time I applied to Discord. So, actually, the first 2 times I applied to Discord, and then I finally got the job. So, I'm glad that it worked out. But yeah, so Alvin, a little bit about that. Like, what was the process for you joining Capital One? I think you joined as a new grad as well. And like, what advice would you give students?
So I joined through the technology development program. So Capital One has a like variety of what we call campus hire programs for new grads. So we have like stuff like analyst programs, tech programs, management programs, and you are allowed to apply for 2 at once. So as an advice, if you like are interested in two programs, you can apply to both. But then when you get to the interview, you can only pick one. So as an advice for applications, I would say if you're applying to different positions, you can make different resumes for those different positions. Like you can tailor make them for specific jobs. You don't need to have one generic one. And definitely look at the job requirements, because I know a lot of recruiter screening is based on those requirements. You want to make sure you hit all of them. That's why you should like tailor make certain resumes for those jobs. And then as an undergrad, I'll say like expand beyond classroom experiences. So internships, TA positions, hackathons, side projects, anything to show that like you're genuinely interested in this field outside of the classroom.
100%. That's super cool. Did you both experienced hackathons before? You both done work in hackathons?
I personally didn't do any hackathons. I just wasn't, honestly, I just wasn't the hackathon girl, but
I get it.
a lot of my friends did. And so that's also another way to get into, but personally, I didn't.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Have you done any hackathons, Alvin?
So I did one before I did one in undergrad, but recently at work, we have quite a few.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I used to do hackathons all the time. I think I did like 20 in college. I was really into them. I liked meeting people, so it was a really good way to be social. And a lot of my friends would go to those events, and a lot of them were in different colleges. So it was a way for us to meet up for free because they would pay for like trips up to different colleges. So the big one I'd go to is University of Michigan. So that's the one that was like where a lot of my friends were. And so it's nice to have fun. I went to like Y-Hack once, and it was a great time. It was during Halloween, so they had it all themed up. So it's a super fun time.
Cool.
I don't like the process of spending like 24 hours in one room with a lot of people and like staying.
That was me. I was like, I want to go home.
That's the nasty part. But apart from that, it was really fun, like building things and working with the team and like building a really dumb stuff that doesn't have to actually end up as like something that you keep working on. It's just like for that event, you're building something. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And so I know that you talked a little bit about kind of like the interview process, like both you, Laylah, and Alvin. But is there any tips that you have for preparing for interviews? And so Laylah, do you want to go first on this?
Sure. So specifically for software engineering, the biggest thing that I think helped me was practicing, like, I know everyone hates it, but like leak code problems, hacker rank problems. It sucks. I hated it too, but those were the big things that helped me. Going through the different data structures that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with or wasn't as familiar with. And what I would actually do is I would sit in my apartment, close my door, and I'd pick, say, like I was always bad with maps. So I would pick like a map problem. And I would sit and like talk through it as if I was being interviewed right there, just talk to myself and talk through my thought process. And I would try to do like one of those, I would try to do one once a day. I didn't always do one once a day, but try to get as many practice problems in as I can, just so I can be familiar with how these data structures work and what situations one would be preferred over the other. So that would be the biggest thing that would help, I would say, helped me, just being familiar with those data structures, prepping for the interviews, like, because the last thing you want to do is get into the interview and be like, oh, what's an array list? Like what do I do? So definitely just prepping and being as prepared as much as you can, for sure.
Nice. Oh yeah, Rayla, so Java of you. Very, very Java. No, that's awesome. And then specifically at Google, like what was that interview like? So you had the initial code kind of screen, and then how did it go from there?
So for me, so from other people that I've talked to, my interview process was a little weird. So first of all, I got hired during with the pandemic. So everything was virtual for me. So like you said, it started with like a coding assessment. It was like a hacker rank online assessment. You do it on your own time. You just have to get it done by a certain day. That's gets sent off, assuming you do good on that. From there, I got a call from my recruiter saying, hey, you did really well, we'd like to move forward. And they kind of just smoothed out some of the logistics, like what position are you looking for? When are you graduating? What degree are you getting? Just kind of making sure we have like all the right information to be able to move forward. So then from there, I ended up doing, usually from what I've heard, people will do the technical interviews and then they'll do team matching. But for me, I had to do team matching beforehand. So I had 3 teams in 3 different locations. One was in Atlanta, one was in Bellevue, and then one was in Austin. And I talked with like the managers of those teams, figured out what they were working on, seeing if it was something that I'd be interested in. And then from there, I told my recruiter which one I preferred. And so then we had a conversation with the manager and they said, we think she'd be a really good fit. And then from there, I did the technical interviews. I had 4 different technical interviews and 1 behavioral interview. So like, tell me about a time when you did this. How would you handle this situation? And I did those over the course of a week. This was all virtual. So I did all those, and then I waited and waited and waited. And I was super nervous too, because I was like, this is taking a long time, like what's going on? But then my recruiter reached back out to me and she set up a Zoom conversation. So I was like, oh gosh, she's gonna reject me. What's gonna happen? Like, I was so nervous. And so I literally had tissues sitting next to me off screen, because I was like, if she gets rejected, I'm like, okay, thank you. And then I'm gonna go cry in the corner. But she called me and she was like, congratulations, you got hired. I was so excited. And I'd already picked my team and my location. So they sent me the contract and everything over. And I like called my mom and like I signed everything and I was so excited. So yeah, that's what the interview process for me was like. It took like a couple months, like 2.5 months for me. But yeah, that's what it looked like.
That's awesome. I'm glad you didn't get to use your tissue.
I'm so glad.
Maybe happy tears, happy tears. But no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Google is notorious for those long like interview cycles. Like when I was interviewing at Google in college, it took a long time and I put all my eggs in that basket. And so I ended up getting rejected. So I was like, oh no, I gotta find other jobs now.
That's
So
why I was on the verge of tears, because
Mhm.
Google was my last, like if
Yeah.
Google rejected me, I was gonna be unemployed.
Yeah.
So I was like, this has to work. Like it has to work. And it
Definitely,
went.
definitely. Good. Yes. And then so Alvin, yeah. So how is your kind of interview experience? Like how do you prep and like specifically talk to your Capital One interview if you can? Yeah.
Yep. So all like Bachelor graduates go through a campus hire program. So for software engineers, it's called a technology development program, and they usually start hiring in the fall. We also have an online assessment. Once you clear that, you just go straight to the last round. And then the last round consists of a behavioral interview, a technical interview, and a case interview. So the behavioral interview is like going through your experience. They're really looking for like a good story to some of the most common questions, like explaining technical concepts, teamwork issues, delivering on time, stuff like that. And then the case interview, it's a little different. So they will usually, a director level manager will like talk to you and interview you. They'll discuss like a business decision that has a technical twist to it. So they want to see what your thought process is. And then they'll show you a code snippet at the end. Usually there's something very wrong with the code. It's usually pretty obvious. And then you work through them and try to fix that code snippet. You don't actually have to code. It's like pen and pencil, paper and pencil, and you just go through that. And then the technical interview, it's getting a little, it's changing this year, I believe. There's going to be 2 questions, 2 coding questions, and that is it. I would say they're like between Elite Code Easy and Elite Code Medium. And then to prepare for the interviews, I like Glassdoor has a lot of good behavioral questions. So make sure you go through those and really get your story down. They're looking for details and examples. Then I would definitely spend some time leak coding. Like Laylah said, you want to think out loud. You want to talk to yourself, because like the difference between practicing leak code and the actual technical interview is there's someone on the other end talking to you. They're actually like helping you work through the problem. So you can ask questions. It's very much a conversation going back and forth. So I would like recommend when you study for the code questions, you like record yourself and then you play it back, because then you can hear like what you're saying and then think about it from like someone who's not in your head. Like, does this actually make sense? So really know how to like explain your solution, how to explain why you're stuck, because then the interviewer can give you hints and help you through it.
No, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yep. So for
Yeah.
the end to end, I would say it's about 2 months as well. There's like recruiters for certain schools, and they handle all of the recruiting for every school.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I totally think that recording yourself or kind of like talking out loud helps a lot because
Mhm.
when I was doing that, I was like, oh, you say a lot, you say like. I know it's not like a bad thing, but it's just kind of like, cut down on that, try to like be very succinct, but no, that's
Mhm.
awesome. That's great advice. Yeah, for Discord, I'll go really quick and then we'll move on to questions from the audience. But Discord, it was I applied for two different types of roles. The first one was a developer advocate role. So it's a little bit different from being a software engineer. So there was a couple more interviews involved, more on behavioral side. So like if this happened, how would you solve this problem? And so it'd be like, let's say there's a bad actor in like the Discord bot developer space, what would you do, etc. So that was a little bit different, but they also had technical problems. That was where I learned what a try was, and I failed that one so bad. I had to like that I like did the work, and now I know how to do everything with tries now. But so yeah, the second time I did the Discord interview, because I did the previous interview round, and so it was like behavioral, some technical. I just had to do two technical problems the second time, and it was just very front end focused because I'm more of a front end engineer. So that was really nice. It's nice to see more kind of a shift from more algos to more practical, which I enjoy particularly because I'm just better at like React and doing those type of problems. But yeah, all right. So let's start with some questions from the audience, and this one's really good, and I'd love to hear both of your opinions on this. And so, what made you decide you want to be a software engineer as opposed to any other kind of branch within the computer science field? So versus like being a PM or like a TPM, anything else? Like, and maybe even more generally, like what made you want to be a software engineer? And then Layla, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I started programming in high school, actually. The funny thing is, I took the computer science class at my high school because everyone said it was easy. And I needed an easy class because I was taking a bunch of other harder classes. So I took this class and actually ended up really liking programming. I was good at it. I liked it. And so my junior and senior year, I took those classes as well. And when it came time to start applying for schools and for colleges, I knew computer science was definitely the path that I wanted to go down. As far as deciding that I wanted to be a software engineer as opposed to a different role, I had a lot of upperclassmen who I had in the computer science department who I would talk to. And so once they graduated, I would be like, hey, how do you like your position at wherever you're working? What does your day look like? And from the answers that I got, I thought that the software engineering for what I wanted at the time would be the best position for me. But even in the future, I might be open to doing a PM role. I might be open to doing like a technical project manager role. I'm open to anything, but for that initial post-college experience, I was like, I want to be in the code. I want to be building things. So that was probably what drove me the most, was talking with other people.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah. What about you, Alvin? What made you kind of want to be a software engineer?
I think like the problem solving and building aspect of it. There's not many jobs where you can take a problem, design a solution, and build it up all within a couple days. And especially now with like cloud computing, you can do a lot in a very short amount of time. My high school actually didn't offer any CS classes. It was until college, I think our first year, where we took a lot of classes. I took like a material science class. I was like, oh God, this is awful. And then when I got to CS classes, like, okay, this is kind of more my speed. And then I joined a lot of clubs, and then they would bring in professionals from like a lot of fields. And that's how I got like more knowledge about like what a software engineering field is, what they do, and I think it's the right decision.
No, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, I got lucky. I had experience in high school like you, Layla. So we got to take my high school had like 5 classes in computer science. So I did a lot of them. So they had one with like assembly language actually. So it was very
Oh,
low
wow.
level. We had to build, yeah, there was some software that had you drag and drop like kind of little parts of the computer. So XOR gates, all this stuff. So we had to build like a whole
Like
thing.
that too,
It was
yeah.
super fun. It was super fun. Then we had like a Java one, we had like a Scratch one. It was just like all over the place. HTML. So it was really fun. I got really into it there. I actually wanted to be an artist. So I wanted to get into video games, but I wanted to do the art side of them. And then after high school, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll do the programming side and have a little bit of art in there as well. So that's kind of like my initial start into CS was that. And then after doing it in college, I did multiple internships. So I worked at Uber for 2 summers. Then I worked at a video game company, Double Fine for a summer. And so I got like the full breadth of like the what you could do. And so I really loved it. I mean, the life is great. I think it's a very privileged like career, which is it's nice and bad in a couple ways, but like I really enjoy learning. And like I took a little caveat in the middle to be a developer advocate and came back to being a software engineer because I just like writing code more than like making content. So it was just like I just really really enjoy, like Alvin said, the problem solving and like coming up with solutions, and you get to like present something and have people interact with it in such a short amount of time. And I think that's so cool that I can do that, you know, like I built something in Discord and then I saw a friend of mine streaming and the thing popped up that I made and I was like, I was like, oh, that's what I did. So I thought that was really cool. So yeah, no, that's great to hear. So here's the next question, and I think this is super interesting too. So like, what is it like to work as a software engineer in kind of this like post-COVID world? And because the offices are opening up now, et cetera. And so for this question, like, do you both kind of work remote, kind of semi-remote, semi at home? And like, how is like the work culture if you go in office, and how is it kind of working remote too? So let's start with Alvin this time.
So I got to join before COVID hit, and that was very much a 4 to 5 day, 9 to 5, very collaborative environment. And then when COVID hit, it was like an on and off switch. It's like we're closing all the offices, just stay home, order all the equipment you need, and we're gonna stay that way for 2 months, and we'll see. Well, that 2 months turned into 2 years. So right now we have a hybrid model at Capital One. It's very much up to your team. So the directive we got was work something out with your team and then see if your director thinks it's good. And from what I've seen, most teams are going into the office about 1 to 2 days a week. And then you can file for permanent remote exemptions if you want to. And then there are postings now for permanent remote jobs. But my team specifically, so we got together and they were like, what do we want to do? We want to have happy hours in person because Zoom happy hours are just very awkward. If we have huge planning or huge team meetings, we want those in person as well, because like that body language feedback is actually pretty important in a meeting. And awkward Zoom silences are can kill like team culture. So we decided like team building, big meetings we want in person. For our offices, they're actually closed. Well, they're not closed. They're half open Monday and Friday, meaning like the gym's open and that's about it. And then it's fully open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's up to you and your team to decide which days you go in.
Nice. No, that's awesome. What about you, Layla?
So my team, similar to how Alvin said, we're on a hybrid model as well. So our team is generally at home Mondays and Fridays, and we're in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But similar to how he mentioned, it's really up to like your manager. So for today, for instance, I worked from home because it was just more comfortable for me to work from home and I have everything set up and had everything that I needed. But we would try to so we have like weekly meetings. So for those, we try to meet in person, or if we have a one-on-one with someone, we try to meet in person. But it's really flexible, at least on my team, and I would imagine on most teams as well. As far as our offices are fully open. So even though we're at home Mondays and Fridays, if I want to go into the office on a Friday, I absolutely can. We just actually had approval to start having visitors back at the office now. So if I want to have like family or anything come in, I can now do that. But yeah, in general, the offices are pretty open. All the gym facilities are open. During COVID, it was a little more restricted. So you had to like sign up for a desk specifically. But now everyone has their own desk. So it's kind of free and come as long as your manager and everyone is okay with things and you're getting your work done, everything's good.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm fully remote, so it's completely different. No hybrid for me. So it's a lot of I've been remote for a while now. A lot of my jobs. I've moved to Portland, so there's not too many offices here that are based in Portland. So Discord's pretty good with it. We actually do everything on Discord, which is interesting. So we don't have Slack or anything. So all our meetings, everything is in Discord. And as a gamer, it's like something I'm super used to. And we did have like this happy hour the other day, and it was actually not as awkward as I thought it was going to be. It was like a weird trivia one. And so it was like a really fun time. I got to meet new people that I never met, and I had a really good time with it. So I was surprised how well they handled it. But yeah, the people are going in office at Discord. They're making sure to be safe, so not having like an over amount of people in the office at the same time. They do food every like Wednesdays, stuff like that. So it's fun, like office building things as well. And so I'm going, I think, in a couple weeks for an engineering offsite, so I get to finally go and see the office in person, which will be great. But yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So let's see. This is, I think, the last question. So this person asked, like, what tips or advice do you have for freshmen to kind of get where we three are now? And to kind of wrap this up too, because we're kind of nearing the end, in general, like, is there any other piece of advice that you'd also share to students listening today? So maybe like freshman advice and then maybe just general advice as well. So yeah, Layla, do you want to go first?
Sure. So for freshman advice, I know that I'm sure like if you've gone to any sort of career fair, any sort of recruiting event, they'll say no freshmen or we're only looking for juniors, but you're going to get a lot of no's, but don't let that discourage you. They're not saying no necessarily because they don't think you're smart or they don't think you're capable. It's just some companies, that's just who they target their internships for. I know Google specifically, we have an internship program specifically for first and second year students. So look for programs like that, things that are specifically geared towards people who are new to college and don't have a lot of experience. And even if you don't get an internship your freshman year, I didn't have one my freshman year, and I knew a bunch of people around me who did have them. Don't get discouraged. Maybe you take that summer and you work on a personal project, or maybe you just work a general job and you save up some money. As long as you're doing something with your summer, I wouldn't be too worried about not having an internship your freshman year. And then as far as advice for students in general, I would imagine most college students have experienced something like this, but I got to a point my junior year where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. This is too much work. I'm stressed. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. It was not fun. And my mother told me, she had told me before I even went to college, there's going to be a day when you're ready to throw in the towel, but it's important to keep your eye on the end game. Like I'm 24 years old and I work for Google and I have a financially stable job and I'm able to live the life that I've always wanted to live because I stuck with it. So I know it's hard. I know these classes may not be the funnest thing. You don't have time for your friends or for family or for this or for that. Keep your eye on the end game. I promise if this is the career that you want to be in, stick with it. It will be worth it. So just keep your eyes on the end game and stay focused, stay motivated.
I love that, Layla. I love that. I had those dark days too. So fully appreciate that. So Alvin, what about you? What is your advice?
Yeah. So echoing off of that first and second year internships, it is true not a lot of companies have those. So be on the lookout for those specific ones. I know Microsoft also has like an Explorer program. Capital One has like early internship programs and summits that are geared towards younger students. So if you look for those, try to get those. And then I didn't have an internship before I joined Capital One. So I did a lot to make up for it, like projects. I was a TA for 2 years across 3 classes. So I really padded up that resume for the lack of internships. And then once you kind of, I guess, get more settled, like junior year, I would say like find similar people and like in similar boats as you are, and then you can help each other through hard times. That way you don't have to throw in the towel. And then definitely keep your like eye on the prize, because it's 4 years actually goes by pretty fast. Like now thinking about it, I've already graduated for 3 years. I've been working for 3 years. One more year, that was the length of my undergrad. And the last 3 years have definitely felt a lot faster than my first 3 years in college. And like adult life is pretty fun. So just stick in there, kind of make it to the end.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then really quick before we end too for me. So yeah, for freshman, I got really lucky. I got an Uber internship freshman year, but I went to all these hackathons, and the reason I got that was because they saw a project that I built at a hackathon and they were interested in it. And so I got to go through the interview process. So it's very much just like that networking and putting myself out there and going to as many events, like technical events that I could go to, and like just talking to people like recruiters, software engineers, etc. So I think like Layla and Alvin's advice on that is like spot on for sure. And so, yeah. And then I also it was hard. College was not it for me. I was not a great student. I had like a 2 point something GPA. Don't do that. Like, well, but yeah, it was stressful. It was really difficult. And the work that I did in college is not reflective of anything like that you do full time. It's a lot different. It's more academic focused, more like algorithm, more like, all that. So it felt a lot better doing those internships because it made me see like, hey, it's actually fun. It's not just like grinding. So it was a great, that was a good experience to have. But yeah, I mean, the advice is like pretty similar to like what Layla and Alvin have said, right? It gets hard, but look at what your end goal is and see that, you know, when you hit that end goal, it'll make up for all this like kind of, you know, that you have to go through college. So it's kind of what I also had in mind too. It's like, you will get this job, you know, just really like make, and also have small goals along the way. A big goal, like I'm going to get a job, is really hard to achieve sometimes, but so maybe split it up into small goals, be like, I'm going to apply to 5 places this week, stuff like that. And then when you hit that, it feels really good. It'll give you that small little boost of serotonin. So yeah. But yeah, awesome. Thank you both so much for joining this panel.